15 years ago, I came to Oaxaca. I fell in love with the food, the people, the city, but I returned 2 weeks ago and I have noticed it is dramatically different. Now, no place stays the same. It's been 15 years. We've also had a pandemic, but there's something very different about Oaxaca. So I started to ask around. I did a little bit of research. I took some tours, and I want to share with you what I have learned because there are changes that I cannot ignore. The differences of 15 years ago to today, and number one, I have to say, where's all the street food? Good morning from the Zocalo in Oaxaca. You know I love spending time in Zocalos, and back in 2010 I spent a lot of time here, and that's because it was one of the loneliest times I've ever spent traveling. I promise you this is a good story. But in 2010, I came during May, which is the hottest time of year here, and there was no one in the city and there was no one on the streets because it was like 40 Celsius every day. And so in my hostel, I was the only one there. I decided to take Spanish lessons. Nobody else was in my class. That ended up actually being a good thing because I learned a lot more Spanish, and I practiced it with street food vendors and in the market. I really became so enamored in learning Spanish because it allowed me to ask questions, to interact with people, especially the women at the market. They taught me so much about different fruit that I had never tried, like zapote. Am I supposed to cook this? What do I do with this? And then also just the street food vendors who would explain what all these dishes were to me. Now, coming back 15 years later, I can't believe I waited 15 years. I was so excited to share this with Alan. And I said to him, you're gonna love Oaxaca. It's gonna remind you of Asia. There's street food everywhere. It's fantastic. The markets are so colorful. The people are so nice. That's not quite the same as what I remembered. Of course, the people are so nice. But where's the street food? It is no longer here. So today's video, I'm just going to share with you some digging that I did over the last 2 weeks. I didn't want to dwell on how or why things had changed, but I did learn that it changed for a couple specific reasons. And so I thought I would share it with you. And then also at the end of this video, I'm going to share what I think you can do to have kind of that authentic experience you're looking to when you come to Oaxaca, because for a lot of foodies, it is a pilgrimage and it's still a fantastic city, but you kind of need to know now how to navigate it. Let's start with issue number one. Now, back in 2010, it really felt like I was in a local city, eating, walking, talking with locals, learning Spanish, because this was before Google Translate, no iPhones here. And I learned so much and I loved it, but I knew it was not going to last. This was already a city very famous amongst locals. And so in 2017, Chef Rene Redzepi from Noma, the most famous chef and restaurant in the world at that time, held a year-long pop-up, and a lot of people did come, but I don't think that was the nail in the coffin, according to locals. They actually told me it was COVID, although Mexico did open up quite early. The local comadores, the little spots that were selling set lunches, they just could not exist. And so Centro changed very, very quickly. They had to leave their spaces, and in their place, wealthy people from Mexico City decided to take a good opportunity and buy up all of the cheap real estate, and that's what they did. Instead of then, being altruistic people and then renting it back to locals so they could continue the traditional food in the area, they decided they wanted to have, trendy restaurants and bars and cafes and design shops and things like that. Commercial real estate in Oaxaca, in Centro, has gotten so crazy that there are some spaces where the rent is 197,000 pesos a month. It has gotten that crazy. Now, to be completely honest, if I hadn't taken the food tours that I featured in the previous weeks, I would have left Oaxaca feeling completely disheartened that it had changed. But tours with Sidewalk ends, the guides there, they don't just tell you the peachy keen things, but they give you the history, the politics, what is happening now, not just what happened traditionally. And I learned a lot about this next subject, which bothered me the most. Where is the street food? So I noticed when I got here that there was not a lot of street food during the day in Centro. There's none around the Zocalo. You've got some markets, but there wasn't a lot of street food that I could find. You can find some at night, but during the day, it was noticeably absent for a city, a food city. And so I learned that in 2018, the city decided to start with a Wednesday. It is called Miércoles sin Ambulantes. And basically what it means is it's the day that in the historic center, there are no street vendors. And when I looked at announcements of this and people's reactions, they really enjoyed it because they said that, these businesses were taking over the sidewalks, as they do, and they felt that it was much cleaner. But I was kind of disturbed by a lot of the comments that it was a nuisance instead of celebrating traditional food and also supporting the economy, the small business economy. A lot of these people make their living doing this. A lot of women that support families are making their living doing this, and nobody seemed to want them on the street. But it gets worse. In 2021, they went further and they forcibly removed about 1,500 stalls from Centro. Now they said, I think, that they were, I don't remember the term, illegal or non-standard, or maybe they weren't licensed, but this made the biggest difference, and this basically, I think, wiped out basically the street food in the city. It seemed that people didn't want it, and the reason for it was to, in quotation marks, recover public space, preserve UNESCO heritage, prevent crowding. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I do not like it when foreigners try to tell countries or cities or cultures what they should do. But this is so disturbing for me. I just want to raise a couple of points that I see as a problem with this. The UNESCO Heritage designation is for traditional food, and they removed the food from the street with support. If you look at the best food cities around the world, Bangkok, Penang, Malaysia, Tokyo, Saigon, there are so many cities that are the best cities in the world for food. What do they all have? A strong food culture in the street. Now, what do I really think happened? Well, the real estate changed. You've got a lot of wealthy investors who have restaurants here. And they want people to go into the restaurants. They don't want people eating on the streets. But what I think the city and maybe these investors forgot is that if you have a strong food culture, people will go to both. There are lots of people I know who will drop $500 on a Michelin star meal. I have done that. And then the next morning, they will go and slurp $2 noodles. So you can have it both ways. And sadly, they decided not to do that. And so I feel like the street food culture, which was so strong before, is now lacking in Centro. It's different once you get outside of the historic center. And just anecdotally, I also want to share that yesterday I ran into someone who asked me where to eat street food because they came from Mexico City. Again, one of the best food cities in the world. It's not just Asian cities, and they could not find it, and they were shocked because they came to Oaxaca for traditional food and they knew they wanted to eat the energy in the street. Okay, let's not talk about food. Let's move on to something else. Now let's talk about Airbnb. So Airbnb in Oaxaca has exploded. Commercial real estate wasn't the only thing to have a big turnover in the last 5-7 years, also residential real estate. So there are 3,000 Airbnbs in Oaxaca that are primarily in Centro, Xochimilco, and Halatlaco, which in 2023 was named one of Mexico's Barrio Mágicos, different than Pueblo Mágicos, and that basically turned it into tourist attraction in itself. When you go to these neighborhoods, they are beautiful, lots of beautiful murals, very trendy places to stay, lots of restaurants, but when you talk to locals, you hear the local side that there are people that grew up here, generations of people lived in homes that were forced out because of short-term rentals, and long-standing restaurants and places that people loved have been replaced faced with these trendy restaurants, cafes, and bars that tourists love that are staying in these Airbnbs. So it's becoming a huge issue. It is kind of the epitome of gentrification. Now in Puebla, we did stay in an Airbnb, but I have to say that this has really changed my mind about it, especially since I heard that during the pandemic, the CEO of Airbnb actually bought a block in Roma Norte. And so that was already a neighborhood that was pretty gentrified as it stands. I stayed outside of it back in, I think, 2019 because it was too expensive for me to stay in at that time. But since then, the prices have soared even more because when you own a block of Airbnbs, you basically set the price and everybody else rises with you. This is definitely an ongoing issue and was not the original point of Airbnb, to help local people rent a room or like a vacation home. This is basically big corporations, rich people getting even richer. Yeah, that's what Airbnb is all about, and we're not going to use it anymore. So there are people setting up behind me some street food, so I really wanted to kind of just share some thoughts. This video is not about just telling you what I see that's wrong with Oaxaca, but actually just my thought process for the last 2 weeks of what am I seeing, but also as a tourist, what is my role? So I do think tourism can push gentrification, but it also can protect tradition. It is our job to make the city better, to lift up small businesses, to help women entrepreneurs, to support families. That is what tourism can do, and that's what I'm all about and why I love sharing food from around the world, because when you buy from a woman who is making food, you are supporting her family. Now, another person who thinks that is the owner of Where Sidewalk Ends. They are all about sustainable, responsible travel. The tours cost a little bit more because they pay locals a fair price. And Ian is running a foundation that has so far given $26,000 directly to NGOs with projects around the world. He's a great person that's always looking to do interesting things, and his guides are fantastic. It's not just the same old tour that you'll take anywhere else, but they really share their honest feelings about being local, living in the city, the issues and history. Like, let's be honest about what history was really like. Colonization was brutal. Because once we accept that and talk about it in that way, we can understand why things are the way they are today. And so I am so thankful to all of his guides, Laura, Christian, Tavo, Eduardo, for sharing their stories with me, because it helped me actually give me hope for the city that, yes, all of these things are happening, but you also have these people working passionately in tourism to actually uplift their communities and give to them, not just take for tourism. So when we support local businesses, go to the market, support street food with our dollars, we are showing the business of tourism that is what we want. When we take tours or stay in locations outside of the central area, we are showing that we can support local families. I just think that we need to reframe this, because visiting Centro this time, I thought it would be, where all the food was and really great. And I'm glad I showed it to Alan, but taking all of the tours outside of town, seeing the local communities, those are all of the most special moments. Anyway, I hope this video inspires you. It was just some things that I was thinking about. I am going to write more about it on my website, Bacon is Magic, share all of the resources, and I really do encourage you to check out Where Sidewalk Ends, because I love what they're doing. I wish I had more time here actually in Oaxaca, because they have a few tours that I would really like to take. Anyway, we are leaving Oaxaca, but we are not leaving Mexico. In the next video, it's going to be interesting because I'm going somewhere very, very touristy. I'm not sure if I'm going to like it, but I'm dedicated to finding the local side, the local food. So I'll see you then.